and some different other forms of technology. So 60% of students increase on their IMSA score. So this is a standardized exam, 10 to 15%, and 30% decrease by 3 to 9%. Now, just to explain this a little bit, the biggest reason for the decrease was primarily because most of the students, as far as in Arabic countries, they're used to being taught with rote memorization. So it's the teacher standing in front of the classroom, giving them information as she sees fit, and you memorize it and then you regurgitate it on an exam. This applied more critical thinking skills, and it also required the students to do more independent learning, and that's something they weren't used to. For a lower ability student, it's better for them because they get more support. They have the teacher not just telling them, but they're also doing more self-discovery, more exploration on their own. Versus a normal high ability student that's good at memorizing and regurgitating that, this will be difficult for them because it's more than memorization. It's them actually learning a skill and being able to apply that skill in different contexts. So that was one of the things that was extremely challenging for them, which I noticed. So then that brought in another issue to study about how to reach the more higher ability students in a way where they're not still focused on the rote memorization, but they're learning more independently and they're also more skill focused in their learning. So now it's your turn. And here's some of the apps, as I was discussing earlier, that you can use for flipped classroom. Is everybody in K through 12 setting? Is anybody in high school? I mean, in university levels? Or everybody's K through one university, two, a couple of universities. Most of these can be applied across the board, K through 12 or in university. University have to be just a little bit tricky to finagle a little bit, but trust me, they'll have fun and they'll absolutely love all of these apps. So all of these are available on iPad. They're all free in the Apple Store, so you don't have to pay anything. And then some of them have like an abridged version, the free one, and then it's maybe $3 or $4 for the upgraded version. So even if you get the upgraded version, it's more than reasonable financially. And all of these I purchased with my own money, so nothing was given to me from the school. So $3 or $4 is way more than enough than I can afford for a few iPads. So for flipped classroom, the main ones that I used were Doceri and EduCreations. And then for speaking and listening, which are skills that we have to practice being that we're dealing with second language learners, were Puppet Pals, Sparklefish, and StoryRoad. So I'll show you guys a few examples of these so you can see how they work. So EduCreations is pretty much like a blackboard, but so much simpler, not as complicated with all the buttons and stuff. And pretty much you take a picture of a text, or you can have a white screen, however you want, and then you create whatever you want. So you can take a picture of a text for a main idea, and then you give hints how to do the main idea. You can give voiceover, you can show them, you can record yourself moving on the screen, however you want to do it, be as fancy or as simple as you want, and then add a written text. So the biggest thing, especially if you're doing flipped classroom, is your script. You want to make sure your script is clear. And especially if you're dealing with second language learners. I know I'm talking fast now, but all of you guys speak English, I hope, and understand what I'm saying. But if you're dealing with second language learners, you do have to talk a little bit slower so that they can understand what you're saying and speak very clearly and enunciate. You can't let your accent get in the way. And I'm Southern, from Georgia. So we drawl a little bit, y'all know? So you have to make sure that you don't let your accent get in the way of you being clear, because the recording, depending on if you're using just your computer or if you have a microphone, sometimes the speech can seem a little bit muffled. So that's one way that you can control it depending on the type of device you're using. And then back to the script, the biggest thing is make sure it's clear. Make sure you make the script for pretty much the lowest of the low, because you don't know who's watching. You may be dealing with a basic level person. You may be dealing with an advanced person. But like I said, it's already differentiated. So if they're advanced, they can just skip you. But if they're low, then they have the opportunity to watch the lesson all the way through, from beginning to end. So I'll show you just one. This is Doceri. So you can have it connected to your iPad or the computer, however you want to project it. So you can see it's like a blackboard, but it's very simple. So you can have a whiteboard screen, but on this one, I'm going to put the text up so that the students can read the text and identify the main idea. So you can see it's very simple. Put your text up, you're done. You can use any of the tools to write, highlight, copy, paste, zoom in, zoom out. and then you just hit the red button to record when you're ready to start recording. And if you want your voice, you can put your voice there. If you don't, you can just leave it like this so it's silent. So you can see I'm highlighting, I'm giving my student clues to help them find the main idea, and then they can do it on their own. And then once you're finished, you can upload on Facebook, YouTube, save it, email it, however you want. So there are tons of options to upload it and send it to students. Speaking and listening, like I was saying, Puppet Pals, this is the coolest app ever. I love this app, it's so much fun. That's what I was saying, most of these can be adapted to any level. I can't imagine anybody not liking Puppet Pals. It's pretty much a play script. And what I do for my learners is I either let them make a play or retell a story, and they have the puppets and they move the puppets with their fingers. So sometimes if you're not coordinated like me, you need a little help. So somebody's reading and somebody's moving the puppet at the same time. But it's a great way for your students to kind of interact. Sparklefish, it's better for lower grades. These are already pre-scripted, and you pretty much, it asks you to fill in an adjective or a noun or a type of car or this, and then it creates a funny story for the students based on how they filled in the blanks. And then Storyworld, pretty much you have a picture, and you can give the students a picture or they can find their own pictures, and then they create a story around it, and it brings in music and all types of things to make it more interactive for the students. So I'll show you another example. This one is Puppet Pals. And I did this one myself. I have some with my students, but you'll hear me doing the play on this one. So you pick your characters, and this one's the Old West. So we'll get an old cowboy here. And then we'll add somebody for him to talk to. So we'll find a little girl. And I'm not sure, is the sound on? Yeah, because you can't hear me talking. But this is me acting out the play. So the guy is saying, you know, he's in the Old West, and the little girl is saying, oh, I lost my mom, he helped me.
Once upon a time, there was a man who was walking in the West, Old Wild West, and he saw a little girl wandering by herself. Oh my goodness, I'm so lost. I can't find my mom. I can't find my mom anywhere. Whoa there, little darling. What's the problem here? I can't find my mom anywhere. Have you seen my mom?
So that's just me playing, but you can imagine how creative students can get with this. And it's tons of scenes. If you get the upgraded version of this, it's only $5, $4.99. And you can actually take pictures of anything. I can take pictures of you guys and create a scene and a story out of whatever I take a picture of. So it's really neat and very interactive for the students. They can get as creative as they want to. Now, are there any questions or comments about anything? Yes.
Yeah, just with those apps, what can you do with them as far as putting them in the learning management systems and whatever?
If you're just having a normal classroom, for Puppet Pals, what I normally do with it is, like we're working on speaking and listening. So it might be the literature section that I have for students, and I actually have them change the ending of the story. So one story that we did was Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. So they had to change the ending of the story. In the end of the story, Ali Baba and his wife, they get the money, they kill the 40 thieves, and they live happily ever after. But there was one section in the story where Ali Baba ran off with the maid and took the money with her, and then left the wife by herself because the students changed the ending of the story. So then they used Puppet Pals to act it out. So that's one way to use it. Another way to do it is to kind of assess the fluency of students reading. So you can have them read a story, and then somebody else is acting the puppet out. Then they can go back and listen to themselves. It's totally different when they hear themselves recorded reading. And then they can determine, did I read too fast? Did I read too slow? Did I stumble over words? And then go back and do it over again, because you can record and delete as much as you want to. So that's another way to look for fluency and accuracy when you're reading.
So just on that, sorry, so when that happens, do you hear that, or is it that, are they self-assessing?
They can self-assess. For some students that I feel can't accurately assess themselves, I will go back and listen to it. And then because I keep the recordings, I can go back and track how the student improved. Are they improving? Do I need to work with them individually and determine their growth from there?
Okay, thank you.
Hi. I was just wondering, in terms of setting up a flipped classroom for a new teacher, do you have any sort of
To get started, I would try to focus on something very simple. What, are you teaching English or what subject area?
I'm from TAFE, so teachers could be teaching.
Okay, so you're doing across the board. Tell them to start off with something very simple, not complicated. If they're doing math, you don't want to start out with maybe Pythagorean theorem or something like that. You want to keep it basic until their comfort level builds. The biggest thing is to try and find a platform where they feel comfortable with. If it's doceri, if it's just creating slides and pictures, and they create a voiceover on top of the slides and pictures. That's another option. If you're using Windows Movie Maker, they can easily put in pictures and then put the voiceover on top of the pictures. And then they can add a pointer or a finger. Start out very simple until they feel comfortable. Once they get comfortable, then you can incorporate some of these apps, especially if they're not technology literate and they don't feel comfortable with it. So I think the biggest way, if they're very simple, they don't know anything about technology, start them off on a basic computer and give them just pictures, and they can line up the pictures going from there. They can scan a copy of the book and take the pages and then put a voiceover on top of the pages from the books. If they're more fancy, then definitely go with this and be as creative as they can. Khan Academy, TeacherTube, try those first and then see if you can find videos that are related to which subject areas. And then, like I said, Edmodo is an amazing platform. They can embed it directly into Edmodo. TeacherTube, YouTube, any of those. Khan Academy can embed directly into there. And then have the teachers create a lesson after they watch the already pre-recorded video. So that's another way to start off simple. And then once they get fancy, they can start making their own videos and adapting more for their students. Because for me, those videos really didn't work because they didn't fit with my student base. The students were very bare level. They weren't really into technology, especially when it came to teaching. It was primarily focused on the teacher and not a student-centered classroom. So I had to create something different for my students. But if you're dealing with native learners, then definitely those will be a perfect way for you to start with your teachers. They can upload the videos, and then they're only creating the activities after in the classroom. So that's what they can focus on, is how can I create a more innovative classroom activity versus teachers just giving worksheets and the students filling in the blank or answering the same math questions, and that's it. How can they make a game, or how can they make an activity for students to explore and build on that level? Then once they've gotten that component, they can focus more on building the video recording skills. Yes.
How did you get started with this? And also, the other teachers in your school, are they doing this as well?
I've actually changed schools since this one, but yes, my previous school, I had everyone on Edmodo, so they were using it in all of the classes, English, Arabic, all of the subject areas. And we were actually linked to each other, so the teachers could see what I was doing, I could see what they were doing, we could send assignments to each other. But the biggest thing that I started with it was because I got bored. I got bored as a teacher. So I knew my students were bored, and then I had a class that was a challenge for me. So I had to find a way to grab their attention to make them want to learn something that was clearly difficult for them, because as a whole, they weren't performing well. So that was the biggest thing, was something that grasped my interest and that I knew would grasp my students' interest. And they actually loved it. It was very slow to take off, and I will say that, especially if you're getting started, some of the students won't watch the videos, but I just kept teaching. If you didn't watch it, too bad, it's your problem. I'm gonna keep going. And eventually, when they're missing out, when they don't know how to do the activity, when they don't understand, when all the other students are talking, oh, did you see the video? Oh, she did this, oh, she talked about that. They started feeling left out. And then they started joining on, and that's when I was saying they created little parties at their houses after school. So I would try to give it to them on a Thursday, which is our weekend. Thursday's our Friday. And then they would have Thursday, Friday, Saturday to watch it. And then Sunday they would come in so excited and ready to go because they've already done the activities and they want to see what game we're going to play in class that day. So that's the biggest thing, is you have to find a way to make it attractive for the students and then give them an incentive. And the incentive is, I'm not going to teach when you come in class. We're going to come straight, do our revision, and play a game. And of course they want to play a game. And of course they want whatever treats you have for them, a sticker or whatever the case is. So that was the way to invest in them and to get their attention for it. Any more questions? Perfect timing. Thank you so much.
Whoever did that, that's